first time ever.
Warning acts of terror.
We are ready to engage with a two-state solution.
Some of his most senior cabinet members
advise us what our new economic age.
Nepal Chaos, the great game of giants, China, USA and the NGO. Well, picture this. Nepal, that stunning Himalayan buffer between two superpowers, is now a full-blown battleground, not just for protesters and police, but for global heavyweights, China and the USA. As of September 11, 2025, with Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli out and 13,500 prisoners on the loose after fiery riots, the unrest is not just homegrown frustration. It's laced with foreign fingerprints. Youth are marching for jobs and free speech, but behind the scene, who's there? NGOs funded by Washington and Beijing are pulling strings, all while India's border security hangs in the balance. Now let's unpack this integrated mess from NGO founders to superpower angles and see how it spells trouble for New Delhi. Now, a quick recap with a fresh twist. When did the spark happen? A government crackdown on 26 social media apps in early September, seen as muzzling the young. But dig deeper. Nepal's economy is sputtering, youth unemployment is 20%, remittances dipping, and corruption scandals involving Nepo kids, politicians, pampered offspring, fueling viral rage. Now, protests exploded, parliament stormed, Singha Darbar offices gutted by fire, a swanky Hilton hotel reduced to ashes, and clashes killing over 30. Curfews, army patrols, and the jailbreaks, they have turned Kathmandu into a ghost town. Now, the twist. This is not random anarchy. Social media sleuths and analysts point to coordinated hits targeting state media, ministries, and even specific ministries. Now, English signs screaming democracy now, scream Western playbook, while demands for an interim government led by ex-Chief Justice Sushila Karki echoed scripted regime changes. Oli's pro-China lean. What's into that? Now that's the real target, says insiders. With the army stretched thin and borders chaotic, Nepal's fragility is India's nightmare. NGOs, the shadow players and their founders. Nepal NGO scene is massive. Over 40,000 local outfits and 200 international ones pumping in billions for aid. But many are fronts for influence. Founders and funders often hail from abroad, turning charity into chess moves. Take Hami Nepal now, the protest ringleader, founded by Sudan Gurung, a Kathmandu-based activist with ties to youth networks. It's no grassroots group. Gurung's being vocal on TikTok and Telegram, dishing out protest guides with tips on gear tactics and even embracing violence. Who's funding? A whooping 200 million Nepalese rupees, about like $1.5 million from United States linked sources, including the National Endowment for Democracy. Now, NED founded in 1983 by US Congress as a democracy promoter. This is often slammed as a CIA soft power arm, bankrolling opposition in places like Hong Kong and even Ukraine. Now, Hami, Nepal's also cozy with NED-backed Free Tibet movement, blending anti-corruption cries with subtle anti-China jabs. Now, on the US side, USAID, US Agency for International Development, founded 1961 under President Kennedy, has funneled millions into Nepali civil society. Recent grants 1.8 million in 2024 for media and youth programs per NED's own reports. So, founders of these local NGOs, who are they? Often expats or locals trained in the West. Think American universities or Soros linked workshops. Now, George Soros Open Society Foundations. It was founded in 1971-9 with the Hungarian billionaire chips into supporting groups like Project Multoli, Indonesian but with Nepal ties for independent media that amplifies unrest as well. China's center, what is that? Their NGO are newer, but they are highly aggressive. The China Foundation for Peace and Development, founded 2007 by Chinese government, funds cultural exchanges, language schools and BRI projects. Founders are state affiliated diplomats and party officials. Less flashy than United States once, but highly effective. Now, promoting Confucius institutes for building soft power, countering Western interference. In Nepal, they have backed Oli's infrastructural dreams, like the Pokhara airport. Now, Western NGO like Oxfam, which is founded in 1942 in UK US branch active, or Save the Children in 1919, US led, it focuses on rights and AIDS, but critics also say they subtly push democracy agendas. Now, Indian NGOs rooted in shared culture stick to education and temples, but they get accused of overreach. So, now what is the bottom line? These groups are not neutral. US funded ones, NED, USAID, train activists and fund media to expose corruption, while Chinese ones stabilize pro Beijing regimes. In the riots, Hami Nepal role turned genuine youth anger into targeted chaos. The superpower angles, that's USA's pushback versus China's grip, Nepal sandwich between India's ally vibes and China's BRI ambitions. But now the USA is crashing the party hard. Now, what is the USA's play? Color Revolution 2.0. Washington sees Nepal as a domino against China's rise. Oli's government cozy with Beijing since his 2024 China visit, sealing rail and dam deals, urged the United States, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, MCC. This is compact and is 500 million US dollars grants for roads and power sparked 2022 protests that called anti-China by Kathmandu. Now, with Biden era cuts to USAID reversed, Congress pumped 1.8 million backed into Nepal programs. The unrest smells like a NED orchestrated color revolution. Now, the former Twitter, now X chatter, screams USA, Nepal, India, linking it to Bangladesh's fall and Sri Lanka's woes. Why? Disrupt China, South Asia gateway, train Tibetan, Uyghur, exiles from Nepali bases, a CIA holdover from Cold War days, and install a pro-West regime. Victoria Nuland's recent visit, what about that? No coincidence. She is the regime change queen. Protests demand Balin Shah as Prime Minister, a US embassy darling who pitched Hollywood ties and met the ambassador. Now, if successful, it balances India-China dominance, but it certainly risks radicalizing youth further. Now, what's the China angle? Defend the backyard. China invested big 10 billion US dollar plus in BRI since 2015, overtaking India as a top trader. Now, their Tibet buffer unrest threatens dam, rails, and influence. Chinese state media also warns of external interference. Now, what is the code for USA? Urging Nepal to resist. Now, their NGO push stability, funding pro-Oli groups, but if protests topple more China leaners, Beijing might pivot. Quiet military aid for economic lifelines to a new coalition. Social media posts also hint at proxy wars. China moving troops to Southeast Asia amid Nepal, Indonesia riots. What is the goal? Secure the Himalayan flank, encircle India via Nepal's road and counter United States encirclement. Now, both power uses NGO as proxies, USA to sow discord, China to buy loyalty. But it's a double-edged sword. United States funding amplifies chaos. Chinese debt breeds resentment, tying it to India's security, a triple threat. India's got the most skin in this game. 1800-kilometer open border, 9 billion trade, and cultural ties. But Nepal's meltdown, supercharged by US-China rivalry in a security sieve. Terror pipeline also amps up. Jailbreaks freed 13,500 inmates, including radicals. Pakistan, LET, Jaish-e-Mohammed already uses Nepal for Kashmir infiltrations, post-Pahalgam attack alerts also. And US-backed unrest distracts Nepali forces, letting arms and fake currency flow freer. And what about China BRI roads? Potential Chinese military access near Siliguri corridor. So trade halted at border mayhem. 3,000 plus Indians stranded. Pilgrims at China-Nepal line. SSB nabbed 60 escapees, but chaos spikes smuggling. So pro-USA shift could mean less intel sharing. Pro-China one, more Beijing spies. NGO meddling ripples can also be seen. US groups like NED fund anti-India narrative. Example 2015 blockade grudges. While Chinese one push debt trap projects eroding India hydropower edge. So if Hami Nepal's model spreads, India's youth protests could also get foreign boosts. Now let's also understand the geopolitical squeeze. USA wants Nepal to check China-India axis. China eyes it for encirclement. Either way, instability invites refugees, radicals, and economic hits. Remittances from Nepali Gurkhas in India could also tank. Now let's also see what's the India response. Border seals, Prime Minister's dialogue calls, and intel ops, but whispers of United States deep state via NED or Chinese deep state party NGOs mean New Delhi must watchdog foreign funds tighter. What is the big picture? Nepal wake up for South Asia. Nepal's revolt blends real pain, jobs, corruption with foreign fuel. United States of America, NED, USAID, founded as democracy tools, and China's state NGOs are the hidden hands, turning youth marches into power plays. So for India, it's a stark warning. Porous borders plus superpower rivalry, vulnerability. So what are the smart moves? Beef up NGO oversight, deepen Nepal ties, sans bullying, and counter US-China narratives digitally. So this Himalayan hotspots is heating up, and India can't afford to blink. That's all from my side in this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat.